Hello, and welcome to yet another video. So this one's on resentment, and this is a bit of a heavy one. Of course, you know, all my other ones have been so light and fluffy. But no, this this is a particularly difficult one because resentment is a very significant challenge in relationships that haven't gone well. And it's one of these things that can actually carry through us through our life. And let me explain what that is. So resentment is kind of preventative anger. Why do I pick all the long words? Preventative anger. Right? It's us being upset at somebody before they can do something because we know they're probably going to do it and it's going to piss us off. Right? It's this sense of, okay, I know I can't trust you in this area, so I've already got my guard up, right? This is that kind of thing. And so when we take a look at the fact that, okay, I am actually being angry before the thing happens because I know it's going to happen, because this is what you do, right? You're not trustworthy, whatever. And so there becomes this kind of hypervigilance and hypersensitivity. I'm not going to try writing that one down, but hypersensitivity, right, to the potential offense because we're watching for it, we're on guard for it. And what happens is, you know, initially we might, have one kind of resentment, right? We're expecting people to not keep their word, right? Well, when we start looking for that, we start noticing, oh, hey, they didn't keep their word here, they didn't keep their word here, they didn't keep their word here. And then we notice when people don't keep their word, they also lie to us, okay? So now we're looking for lies. And maybe when they're lying to us, now they are, I don't know, stealing or taking, or right? There's lots of different things that can happen, right? So maybe they're not trustworthy with a credit card, but then you don't trust them with the chores, and you don't trust them with maybe with the kids because they've started behaving badly around the kids, right? So we begin to build all of these resentments that are all kind of interlinked with each other. So when we have this layer, say the hypervigilance around, not telling the truth, hypervigilance around not keeping promises, hypervigilance around, do they respect me? They're not a very respectful person, right? All of these things begin to cross-link because there's elements of each of these in each of them. And what happens is we tend to then kind of build, and if you're looking at this, you're thinking one of two things, probably either a chain link fence, right? A chain link fence comes between. So this is a kind of a good symbol for what happens when we build up resentment, is we find that we have these chains, these fences that come between us. But and that can be between us and a specific other person, right? We may only carry these resentments for, say, our mom or our dad or our spouse or I don't know, a past business partner or whatever. However, what tends to happen is actually we will convert this fence because when we're starting to be hypervigilant for these sorts of offenses, we notice other people do them too. And then we go, oh, okay, so maybe actually this needs to be more like chainmail, right? I need to be wearing armor all the time, and so you're wearing this chainmail suit of armor to protect yourself from the evils of the world, and you're watching out for them. Now, if you know anything about chain link fences or chains or chain link armor, is that it is heavy, right? So while we're feeling a bit safer because we have these protections, we're actually also starting to be weighed down in life, right? We're being dragged down, and the quality of our relationships go down. The quality of our life, apparently I don't know how to spell life now. Quality of our life goes down. And so what happens is that we discover that there's actually a lot more reasons to be resentful. Right? If your relationship is getting worse, if your life is feeling more and more heavy and weighed down and you're just constantly looking out for the other people to kind of hurt you, then you're looking at and finding more and more reasons to have this chain mail. And maybe you'll upgrade it, maybe you'll get a shield, maybe you'll stick on a sword and become aggressive, right? There's lots of different things that this resentment can do for you that is simply not going to improve the quality of your life, right? The quality of your relationships. And ultimately, that's the reason to do something about this, right? If you find that you're just angry all the time, this is probably what's going on, right? You may be angry against dead people, and you're still carrying that around with you, right? If my uncle hadn't done such a thing to my sister, or if my dad hadn't done such a thing to me, or if my boss or my teacher or whatever, some of these people you're never going to see again, and you're carrying resentment for them, and it's infecting and weighing down your whole life. That is not cool, right? That's not good for you. So resentment is ultimately about us trying to protect ourselves from those kinds of pain, and that makes sense to me. Why would we want to experience pain? However, there are ways of protecting yourself against pain that don't involve this preventative anger. It involves grieving, it involves forgiveness, it involves reconciliation, it involves letting go of a hope for a better past. It's choosing to pursue positive things, right? And all of those things will help degrade the quality of and the weight of the armor. And ultimately that becomes the question, right? How do we get rid of resentment? Okay, maybe this is the first time you've recognized, oh my goodness, I'm carrying this, chainmail armor between me and the world, and it is heavy and it does suck, and frankly, who wants to hug somebody that's wearing chainmail, right? That is, one, it's stinky as heck, and two, it's really uncomfortable. It pinches and all those sorts of things. So we want to get rid of this. Well, how do we do that? Well, it's not a cakewalk, right? Simply because of these things being so powerfully interlinked, and the fact that you've probably been working on this your whole life, right? You've been building this chain or this chainmail for your whole life, probably. And so you're now going to have to begin to let some of those things go. So right now, you can do that. You can just simply pause the video, go through a list of people that you're resenting, and forgive them and let go of what's going on. Not saying it's easy, not saying that one time's going to be enough. You may have to do it dozens of times and get some support, like counseling or those sorts of things to work through it. But that's one of the things that you can do to begin to disconnect, right? Follow the path of resolution, which means resolving each of these links as best you can, or in fact, you can delete entire rows of links because you've let go of that particular way of thinking and being. Another thing you can do, so that's kind of dealing with the past, right? But while you're dealing with the past, you could be building new links to the chain anyway, and so then you need to deal with the present as well, right? So in order to get rid of our desire for preventative anger, to protect ourselves, we do need to resolve the past, and we need to make sure that we don't add any new links to the chain by resolving things in the present. So if we make a habit of choosing the path of resolution, of being collaborative, of using power of thinking through what's going on, we're going to find that these links stop forming, which means that the repair necessary to keep this chainmail on you starts going away. And pieces start falling off, rusting off, coming off, or maybe you figure out a way to take it off entirely. But the challenge here is to make sure that we are paying attention to the past and kind of working through whatever issues we have there with people and things that we're hypervigilant for. But we're also dealing with the present, which means trying to become this resource self, right? All of these little guys are tied to our little eyes, our juvenile strategies that we learned growing up. And we need to grow those strategies up so that we actually resolve problems as they as they happen. Another way of kind of doing this is celebrating the successes. Start paying attention to what works, right? So you've decided that your spouse is untrustworthy. Stop focusing on the areas that they're untrustworthy and start focusing on the areas where you can trust them, right? So it's this balancing out. It's starting to notice, oh, hey, I can't trust them to put gas in the car, but I can trust them to put dinner on the table, right? I can't trust them to do the lawn, but I can trust them to make the bed, right? So begin to realize that people are complicated. They're good at some things and not good at others, and maybe we can figure out a way to deal with that, right? So the reality is we can do something about the resentment, but it will take work, it will take time. And you will probably need some support if you have a full set of chainmail on. Simply because if you look back to kind of how those things went on and off, you need help, right? There's a lot of weight to it, it's very awkward, and you frankly can't see most of what it is you need to deal with. So bringing somebody in, listening to your friends, listening to your mentors, going to a counselor, seeking support in your community, all of those things will allow you to move forward. Another one is to kind of lose this, this self-focus, and we've got a video on I, you, we consciousness. So remembering that others have resentments for us too, right? We fail as well. We make mistakes. We don't always keep our word. We're basically the same as everybody else, and so why do we get to be the warrior that beats everyone else up for not being perfect, right? So this idea that we actually need to begin to recognize that not only do I carry resentments for others, others probably carry resentments for me. So what can I do to help unload that weight on other people, right? How can I, as a resourced adult, begin to recognize that, you know what, there's always, even if there's only two people in the room, there's three things to think about, right? It's you, it's me, and it's us. And so remembering that as you have your armor on, that, a relationship is no place to be carrying armor, right? So it's not about, exposing yourself to unnecessary vulnerability. It is about choosing vulnerability as a value and finding the strength to be vulnerable enough to keep the relationship moving in a healthy way, to vulnerable enough to be safe so you don't get too vulnerable, but you want to be you have to be vulnerable in relationships. That's just the way it is. The process of getting rid of resentment is a process of risk. It is a process of learning. It's a process of figuring out how can I actually turn these things around so that in fact my resentment is going down, but my life and my relationships are going up, because that's the goal, is to increase the quality of your life and your relationships. The only way to do that is to release resentment. So we're going to leave this up for a little while and look forward to any comments, and thanks for watching.